Welcome to FYI, the podcast where we have brief career chats with various professionals. My name is Diana Ramirez.
And my name is Sarah Shamasha. We are first-year experienced counselors, aka FYE, hint, hint to our podcast name. Our vision with this podcast is to share the career journeys of alumni who started at the community college.
We're starting in 3,
2,
1. Welcome to another episode.
Yay! Today we have a very, very exciting guest that we're kind of both meeting at the same time.
Yes,
the same
very
time
new to
for the
us.
first
So
time.
this journey, we're hearing it with the audience. As you heard it, we're hearing it live and very new.
Yes, so I am going to be providing a quick bio before we introduce you. Today we have Alexis Duran. He is a Southern California native, educator, and award-winning filmmaker. He holds a bachelor's degree in film and digital media from the University of California, Santa Cruz, and an MFA in film and TV production from San Diego State University. Alexis has a strong foundation in TV news broadcasting, having worked as an operations technician for NBC San Diego 7. As a freelance filmmaker and founder of Oxford and Clare Productions, he has filmed and directed documentaries and episodic content for prominent outlets such as BBC Three, USA Today, Bloomberg, Now This, The Wall Street Journal, Al Jazeera, The Weather Channel, Business Insider, Facebook, Only Good TV, LinkedIn, Future Studios / Barcroft Media, HubSpot, Truly, Voice of America, PBS, and TED. His work as a writer and director on short narrative films has gained international recognition. His 2018 film, By Luna, was selected by 12 festivals, won 2 U.S. awards, and was invited to screen at the Short Film Corner at the 2019 Cannes Film Festival. His 2021 film, Forgetting Caroline, screened at the Austin Film Festival and the San Diego International Film Festival. In addition to his filmmaking career, Alexis is an adjunct professor in the Film, Television, and Media Arts Department at Southwestern College and teaches film studies at Miramar College. Wow.
Wow, we look getting fancy up in here. I love that. Welcome.
Yeah, thank you. Nice to meet both of you. Really happy to be here.
Yes, we're excited to get into your journey about your community college experience, how you found your major, and then how you went to your undergrad, and just what you kind of do now. So thank you for taking your time out of your schedule. We're always really honored. Before we kind of get more into that conversation, we did a segment a few episodes ago about a rapid fire question. So I'm just going to ask you, we didn't preface, give you any of this stuff, so give you a moment to kind of answer that, but not too many moments, okay? Mm-hmm. Alrighty, so rapid fire question number 1 is, and I feel like I'm already going to know the answer just based on what you said earlier, but coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Okay, what kind of coffee? Because I heard you saying something about an espresso earlier.
Yeah, I love mochas, but lately just straight black, just 1 or 2 shots of espresso. Yeah.
Nice. I love the smell of coffee. I don't drink it too much, but I love the smell of coffee.
Yeah.
Alrighty, next question. This one's a little out there, but go-to karaoke song.
Oh, yeah. Maybe a song, maybe Billie Jean by Michael Jackson.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
That's fun.
Nice. Dream travel destination. We were just talking a little bit about this, but any one or a few places you're looking to travel to?
Yeah, I do travel often. I try to travel once or twice a year. I'm going to Nicaragua this December, but the next 3-4 countries I would like to visit would be Japan, the Middle East, specifically Iran, a Nordic country like Sweden or Norway, and I would like to go back to Cuba.
Oh,
Yeah.
nice. Yeah, Japan's also on my list. Anyone that was on your list, Sarah?
For me, it's South Korea,
Okay.
Iceland, somewhere either in South America or potentially Africa.
Nice. And you already been to Japan, so
I've already
you're
been to
lucky.
Japan.
You
I
already
love
crossed
Japan.
that.
Highly recommend going. Yes.
Have you been and you're going back, or you haven't been?
I have not been to Japan,
Okay.
no, but it's definitely up there.
Nice. Alrighty, favorite book or movie? I know that might be hard, maybe.
Yeah, that's definitely a tough one, but I would say The Tipping Point by Malcolm Gladwell. That was a very pivotal book when I read it back in 2008, which might tie into one of my questions or one of my answers to your question, so I'll hold off on that. And favorite film, I got to give you at least 5.
I knew it
Yeah.
wasn't just going to be one. I had a feeling.
It's like that Letterboxd. I don't know if you know, familiar with Letterboxd, when they ask celebrities of the red carpet, top 4, and they go off and list 20 or 10.
That's
Yeah.
funny.
But I have to mention Toy Story 1, Sideways by Alexander Payne, Close Up by Abbas Kiarostami, 8.5 by Federico Fellini, La Notte by Michelangelo Antonioni. Yeah, I'll list those. Yeah, for now.
Nice.
Yeah.
I think I've only seen Toy Story.
Me too. I was about to say. I was like, this is very interesting.
Yeah, so now I have a list of films I gotta check out.
Yeah.
Alrighty. I will ask, what is one of the maybe most unusual jobs you've had, or something that is different than what you do now, if it's not unusual?
Yeah. Well, I'll say this. Between the age of 17 and 21, I think I had about 12, 13 jobs. I would bounce around every 2-3 months. And I did different jobs. One of them was for counting inventory. As a graveyard shift, I would go to different businesses. It was a team of like 8, 10 from retail stores, counting what they had in stock just for inventory purposes. And that was kind of, I wouldn't say weird, but yeah, I did it for like 2 months. And,
Just very different than what you do now.
Yeah, but then again, I was just bouncing around from culinary, food, hospitality, retail, customer service. Yeah, so I wouldn't say it was out of the ordinary during that time period, but looking back, yeah, a little bit.
Nice.
Yeah.
I'm curious about that. Was that just like you were trying to explore what you liked? That's why you were bouncing around, or was there a different reason?
I think it was mostly based on money. I was like, oh, they pay, $12.50 or they pay $13, and I would just hop on over somewhere else. Yeah, for that 3-year period, I was just moving around. Yeah.
Alrighty, our last question for here is going to be morning or night owl. Which one are you, morning person or night owl?
Equally both.
What?
Equally both. I used to love being a night owl, but as I'm aging, I still go to bed late sometimes, and but I'm a morning person. I really am. Yeah, I'll sometimes go to the gym or try to stretch or somewhat meditate, read or write or watch YouTube videos or go on a walk or just go outside. I feel like I'm equally in tune with both.
That's
yeah.
nice.
Yeah. Goals.
I
My
can't
goal would
relate.
be in the future to be morning person, but it is a struggle. I've kind of learned to embrace, like, okay, maybe I'm not going to be the morning person, but just better my nighttime routine and better my morning. That's my new goal.
Yeah.
That's good. I'm forced to be a morning person.
Oh, really?
Because I have to wake up and go to work. So
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
sometimes you don't have a choice and you're forced to be, because I'm more of a night person. Like that's where I feel my inspiration strikes. But I get so tired that I actually sleep early now.
Well, okay, so but if you were get to choose your
If I get to
schedule, you would be night owl.
Yeah, I wouldn't wake
Okay.
up earlier than 9 or like 8 max.
And on the weekends?
On the weekends now, like my sleeping schedule, because I wake up so early every single day, I still wake up like at 8 or 9. I can't sleep in further than that.
I'm the same way. If
Yeah.
I go to bed at 10, I'll wake up at 6. If I go to bed at 3, I'll wake up at 6.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Yeah, that's interesting.
Your body, like your body clock, your circadian rhythm is just used to you waking up
Yeah.
at a certain
right.
time.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Well, thank you for answering the rapid fire questions. It didn't seem very difficult. You were on it pretty good to answer it. So let's get into a little bit. I want to know a little bit more about your community college experience. Let's kind of start there. We talked about that you went to Southwestern College. Just what are any highlights or anything starting your community college experience that you remember at Southwestern College?
Do you want to focus on highlights or just like my journey until I kind of got into it?
Maybe let's do your journey. So did you take a break after high school? Did you go right after? Let's do your journey.
Yeah, I'll say this. Between 2005, when I was 18, through 2018, I came and went about 3 times. I would drop out, the second week, fourth week. I remember this morning that there was one semester that my mom paid for like 15 units and it wouldn't qualify for FAFSA, or I didn't apply for it, I don't recall. But I remember I missed a deadline to withdraw in order to get reimbursed. And I remember I was heartbroken. I felt so much guilt that she spent close to $3,000. And I just felt really bad, this sense of remorse. And I was like, that's it. I'm not going to be going back and forth. So I took off a year. So those 3 years I was coming and going, but it wasn't until spring of 2008 that I finally went back, and I went for 4 consecutive years, including summers. And that's when I ended up, getting 2 associates, and then I ended up transferring to Santa Cruz. But that's a little summary in a nutshell.
Yeah. And so during those years that you weren't really like going, as consistently, what do you think was some barriers, or what were some things that kind of caused that type of experience at that time?
Yeah, I think one of the reasons is that I would enroll in 12 to 15 units, so 4 to 5 classes, and I don't think I was ready to tackle on, just time-wise or applying myself to really immerse myself and focus and study. That when I went back in the spring of 2008, I believe, I said, let me just take 1 or 2 classes. And I don't recall if I heard that from someone, if I read that somewhere, but I took 2 classes and then I got 2 A's, and it boosted my confidence and how to manage my time. And then from there, I took a summer class, Comm 101, public speaking, and then the next semester I took 3 classes. I kept building on that. And I never took more than 4 classes, always 12 units. But the first 3 semesters, I started a bit smaller, a bit more manageable. Yeah. So that was a good move on my part, whoever told me that, or, you know.
That's amazing, honestly, because that's typically what we tell students if they're like on probation or like if they're not doing so well, like start with 1 or 2. Like once you see that A, once you can do those, then you're automatically going to be more motivated to do more. If we're just kind of repeating the same cycle over and over again, there's something that like, okay, let's just pause and see what we can do about it. So it's really interesting that you said that. So thank you for sharing that. And it's also interesting because you said from 18 to 21, you were bouncing jobs, right? So it's at the same time of you like going kind of back and forth. So there's kind of a pattern there, like in some sort of sense.
That's right. And I think also, I'm not sure this still applies today with math and English and reading, where you take an assessment and they place you in a certain class. But I remember I did score in a particular English class, but I was like, well, I don't feel that confident with my run-ons and my fragments. And so I took a class, the one before that one, again, just to kind of try to master it or feel better, more confident. So I think that definitely helped as well. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think I want to go just to one point because it's going to like sit with me. When you were talking a little bit about like his experience, it could be discouraging, right? To like trying to take those like higher level of units, and maybe you're not in the headspace, maybe you have a lot of personal responsibilities. And that's why I tell students like slowing down is not necessarily a negative thing, right? It's taking time to find yourself, taking time to find your pace, and it doesn't have to stay like that, right? Like you mentioned, you did 1 class and then you kind of build on it, because if we're doing the same thing, that could be discouraging. You're like, well, then school is not for me, right? But just kind of changing something on the surroundings, which sounds like that was a little bit of like your journey. And then let's talk a little bit about your major journey. So you talked a little bit about bouncing from jobs and stuff, but major wise, did you go in knowing what you wanted to do, or just what was that piece for you like?
Yeah, going in, I did not know what I wanted to pursue, but when I returned back and I took a class called English 71 with Tracy Shalen, who still teaches at Southwestern, I felt very confident in my writing skills after taking her class, and then I took creative writing classes. So then I majored in English literature, and that's what I focused on for 2 years. And I think just getting positive feedback with my, poetry or short stories. I took a film history class as an elective to meet the humanities requirement, and it was a class called History of Film as Art, which is still offered today at Southwestern. And it was an 8-week short-term class, and at some point I watched a fascinating documentary about the making of a film called Apocalypse Now. When I saw this documentary, I was like, that's it. I think that's what I want to do. I want to be in this industry, in this film industry. So at that point, I was already 4 semesters in as an English lit major. I had already applied to get my AA. So I finished my AA, did commencement, but then I stayed another 2 years, and I switched my major to what was called telemedia. Now it's FTMA. So I think I was in the process of applying, but I stayed 2 more years, and I applied as a telemedia or FTMA major, another 2 semesters. And that's kind of what caused that change from English lit to film.
A lot of students get nervous to do that, right? Like they start on something and they're like, I have to stick with this, even if they found something. How was that for you, that change? Was it like, oh no, am I going to waste my time? Or how did you feel in that moment where you made that? Or were you like, yes, I'm passionate about this, and didn't even have time to think about it?
Yeah, I don't think I had time to think about it, but I got to give credit to my family, because I never felt any pressure to get out of the house and transfer, graduate. My mom kind of just stood back and let me explore things. So I think it was a very seamless transition, going from writing, storytelling to analyzing films and discovering this film program. So the transition was seamless. There was no pressure, and it just made sense. And also, I think to what you said, I don't think I had time to really question or doubt myself. Yeah. Okay. So that was nice. I think everything just worked out nicely. Nice. Yeah. But you're right. I think a lot of people, I do have a lot of students, and they're fairly young, and I talk to many of them often, and they have this sense, this urgency to move on, to the point where they'll take 3 production classes, 2, And I always tell them, enjoy the process, because it's hard enough to make a film, to write something, produce, cast, everything. And you're going to make 2 short films in 1 semester, along with your 2-3 other classes, internship, or family partner, whatever it is. So I always tell people, just enjoy the process if you're able to, especially if you don't have any internal, external pressure. But I do see that a lot with my students. Some of them are just so eager and this urgency to like move on.
You're right.
Yeah.
I think it's like the culture of like, it's 2 years. Like a lot of
Yes,
students
community
come in
college
like,
is
oh,
2
it's
years.
like, you know, they just think, oh, it's supposed to be 2 years, so I have to complete everything in 2 years. And then their peers like, oh, you're not done, you haven't done these classes, you haven't done this. So it's a lot of external pressure of like, oh, if they're not doing within that time, like, oh, then maybe there's something wrong with me as a person. But it's not the reality at all. It's very, very normal to take your time, figure out what you want. And now it's like the golden time is when you're this young, especially when you just graduate high school, to actually explore. And then like you said, different majors require different things. So for someone doing something in the arts, you do want to take your time to hone your skill and like actually learn what you're doing. So it's very valuable that you're saying those things.
Yeah, I agree. Because, we hear community college 2 years, and if someone takes an extra semester, they're like, oh, no, I'm behind. And we're like, and I understand, right? Like, because I remember, too, when I finished graduating from Berkeley, the opportunity was like, oh, do you want to do, like, a summer class? I was like, nope, I want to be done. I'm out of here. Like, so I do understand that, but I do have a lot of conversation with students. It's like, I understand right now that extra semester, that extra year feels so long. But in the bigger scheme of things, when you look outside of it, it is not that long, but it's understandable.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. And it's funny, I found a document where I made a list of classes while I was attending Southwestern of all the classes that I wanted to take. And when I first got hired 6 years ago, I revisited that list and I updated it. I'll admit, I've only taken 1 class in 6 years, but I had like pottery, dance, business, real estate. But yeah, it's the time to explore. I think it's beautiful that we have a community college system.
Yeah.
And so we talked a little bit about your journey, like getting to your major. What is either a highlight or a challenge, either or, that you feel like you would want to share with our audience today?
During my community college years?
Yes.
Yeah, I think one of the challenges, going back to making a short film for one of like the intermediate filmmaking classes, there's a part of it where sometimes you want to impress your professor, but also you want to grow your craft and take it to the next level. And I remember it's very common, I think, at the undergraduate and community college for people to cast themselves, their friends or family. It can work sometimes. But I knew I wanted to work with some talent, somebody who's focused as an actor. So I remember I looked on, may have been pace..com, Craigslist, and I found 2 actors who were around 50 years old. So I was really terrified because here I'm like 24 years old. I'm working with 2 actors. One of them's doing regional theater. The other one's on commercials and a few independent films. But I think it just elevated my story to begin with. And then I grew as a director and how to communicate with them or not feel intimidated by them. So that was a big challenge that I'm glad I took. Yeah. So I often try to encourage my students to reach out to the theater department, Craigslist, Backstage, Actors Access, Facebook group pages, and just if you feel confident about your story, try to cast someone a higher caliber and elevate your work. Yeah.
Sarah, we forgot to ask him the question about the career. We were just vibing and we were having a good conversation with the rapid fire. So usually we start this a little earlier, but it's okay. The theme of this season is doing things organically, so not a little less structured. So we're rolling with it. So what is one word? So kind of moving over from, after community college and having a different conversation. What is a word that you would describe your career journey in? And tell us why.
It describes a journey.
Your career journey, finding your career journey or in your career journey right now. Any just word, it could be a phrase.
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, so many words. It's volatile, but there's some flexibility, immersive. Yeah, there's so many words to come to mind, but unpredictable is probably the one that comes to mind the most. Yeah, but I think that applies to a lot of things in life.
So your current career right now, like what you do right now, you would say it's unpredictable?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, especially with AI, the streamers the last 10 years, with YouTube, social media. Yeah, in a good way, but just being aware of what's going on and adapt, pivot, Yeah.
I'm curious, I feel like often when I meet students or when students are in this field, the pathway to be in the career, it's a little bit unclear. So if you could tell us a little bit about how kind of you went into the career itself and how you establish yourself, like maybe it could be some advice that you give to students of like, obviously the pathway is unpredictable, but what are some of the things that you did or that they can do to actually put themselves in that career pathway?
Yeah, and I think I'll talk about the freelance side. I remember when I came back from undergraduate school, I was working part-time at NBC, but then at the same time I started building my freelance work. Word of mouth, I think Craigslist. But I remember there was a website at the time called Production Beast. And I made an account. I'm not sure if it's now defunct, but the owner of that website reached out to me and said, hey, I have this company called Barcroft, and they're looking for a solo operator, director of photography, or DP. And I was like, yes, I can do it. And I kind of lied as far as the equipment that I had. And that was kind of my introduction to this kind of short video journalism, short documentary space that has blown up these last 10 years because of like YouTube and all the different agencies and companies you listed during my intro. And basically I had to conduct 3 interviews with a few professors from High Tech High. They were helping out building small homes for artists here in San Diego called the Tiny Homes Project. It was a full day, B-roll of them building these houses. I sent the footage to the company, they edited it. And from there, it just started snowballing. From there, I did like maybe 15 videos for them, and then BBC reached out, and then just word of mouth. So that's kind of how I kind of fell into it because that's not what I was kind of striving for. Again, I was just taking whatever was coming my way, short films, corporate stuff, live events. But once that job, came my way where it presented itself, I was like, I really enjoy this space. And again, it just kind of snowballed. And now agencies tend to reach out to me like, hey, I have this other story. It's a 1-day gig, 2-day gig. So I guess that's where it's kind of just a little unpredictable how sometimes you fall into a space that it works out. Did that answer your question?
It does. You kind of have to grasp, kind of do whatever you can do within the opportunities available to you and the resources. But at whatever opportunity comes, maybe don't turn it down.
Yeah.
Because that could potentially open up the door to other things that you can actually explore and do whatever you want to do.
And I have friends who know what they want to do. They want to become what's called like a gaffer, an electrician or a camera operator or a first AC. And I love seeing that when someone knows exactly what they want to do, because then they can just focus on that position and marketing themselves that way. And I had this conversation, I'll keep this short, with a friend that if I had gone possibly to a school in LA for undergrad, there's a good chance I would have specialized, as opposed to kind of a general filmmaker where I work in commercials as a director. I also operate a camera in reality and docuseries, and I also direct short documentaries. So I kind of bounce around in different fields, but it's also nice to specialize. But I think in this day and age, I think anything is fair, There's so much work out there, and you can be a specialist, you can be a master of none, a master of all jack trades. Yeah.
There's kind of space for everybody.
There's a space for everything, yeah.
Okay.
So you explained it, but me, someone that doesn't know anything about this industry, right? So what is like a day-to-day or just a general way that you describe outside of the classroom, like what you do? You explained it a little bit, but could we get a little bit more like detail? Because I'm like listening and I was like, I have no idea about this job. So it'd be, or career, I should say. Can you tell us a little bit more?
Yeah, I think definitely in the mornings, that's when an influx of emails come in as far as pre-production documents to having to send invoices or quotes. Just this morning, I was updating my website. Often takes I'll take behind the scenes photos. So I have a little tab that says BTS. So I'm always uploading behind the scenes photos. Uploading a frame of an interview to showcase my different styles of interviews as far as framing, lighting, or tone or mood. Updating my CV, which is 50% academia, 50% filmmaking. Applying to gigs, responding to emails, again, quotes, invoices. Prepping. This morning, I was moving equipment. I have a job next week. I'm going to do a commercial for a company. So I'm like moving my equipment around, charging batteries, formatting memory cards, cleaning my lenses, sensors, buying more equipment. I'm constantly going on different websites and putting things on my wish list. So a lot of that, and talking to friends and seeing what they're doing. Networking as well, going to events. I tend to go to a lot of events here in LA and San Diego. And that's 50% of it. The other 50 is academia, emails, grading, all that stuff.
Random question, because my brother, he's a graphic design major. So a lot of times when we need like family like party flyers or whatever, he would do that. Do your friends or family come to you for like creating videos? I know it's kind of opposite of what we're doing, but as you were talking, like, do you do some of those like side jobs for like, hopefully they don't reach out to you after this podcast, but just curious what it currently looks like.
Surprisingly, it hasn't happened, but when we get in gatherings, I'm always like, oh, let him take the photo. And I'm like, no, you know, I don't want to mess it up, you know. But surprisingly, no, actually. Yeah. And I haven't really offered either. I've had a few cousins who got married in the last 10 years, but no one's asked. So, yeah, it kind of worked out, I guess.
Yeah. Well, funny story, the way that we connected was your cousin, I was going to say your counselor. Your cousin is a counselor here at Grossman, so she connected. So if she listens to this podcast, Carol, do not ask him to create videos for you.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly.
You haven't been doing it so far, so just keep at it.
Yeah.
Keep that pace.
Friends, yes, but not family.
Okay, nice.
That's so interesting. I'm curious about kind of, because when I read your bio, it had the film kind of experience. Future-wise, where do you see yourself? And maybe we can end it kind of on that note. But future-wise, where are your aspirations in terms of filmmaking, directing, etc.? I'm very curious about your goals.
Yeah, no, it's a great question. I feel like I have a foot in the documentary space and a foot in the narrative space.
Yeah.
And I do see myself making a feature film, and I am working on 2 scripts. But I don't have this like pressure, like, oh, I have to make it by this time. Right. But I do see myself directing at least 2 feature films in the next 15, 20 years. Could be more, who knows? But I want to keep working in the documentary space. And I think for me, it's all about what the story requires. I love the space of the 5 to 20 minute space, duration-wise. But I have worked on 3 documentaries that are feature length as a camera operator when there's a segment here in San Diego or in LA.
Yeah.
So I see myself continuing working in the documentary space, narrative. Hopefully make up 2 features in the next 15 years. And commercials. I want to keep growing in the commercial world. Yeah, I'm really enjoying it. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Nice. One more. I know we said we were going to close it with that one, but my last question to close this up. If a student is interested in, has some idea that they want to maybe do film, or someone that is already a student that is sure they want to do film, what is like one tip that you would give them just about anything, like either a message that they should carry for them through community college or something that they should do to help them get into the field? Anything that comes to you, what would you share?
Yeah, maybe I'll say a few things, but I think the biggest one is relationships. I think I'm always telling my students that, these 24 students next to you, there's a really good chance that one of those students that are going to hire you in the next couple of years or vice versa. And I can't stress it enough, is building relationships. I mean, there's that saying, it's a small world, but it truly is. And I think as long as you're a good person, likable, fun to be around, you don't have to be a specialist or know everything about it. But if you're fun to be around with, people are going to want to hire you. And of course, if it's the opposite, if you're a master technician, great at your craft, but if you're rude and disrespectful, people don't want to be around you. So I think relationships is the biggest one, because those people are going to refer you to other people and hire you. So that's the biggest one. But also you got to be resilient, whether it's a strike or a pandemic, a slow season, right? Or you're pivoting different positions. You have to be resilient. There's that classic saying, thick skin, if you want to say that as well, but I think resiliency for sure. And then of course you got to be motivated and have this drive. You have to be an autodidact as well. Whether you go to school, there's YouTube, but you have to go in there and practice your craft, whether it's writing or camera operating or directing or whatever it is, or sound design. Yeah, you have to be a self-learner, an autodidact, So invest in your craft, constantly learn, build these relationships. Yeah, and just be resilient through all these difficult times. And I think if you apply those things, I think you'll be fine. Yeah. And of course, there's always a bit of luck that's sprinkled in there, right? Timing. Right. So, yeah.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your journey with you, getting to know you a little bit more. I've learned a little bit about the film industry today, so I appreciate you coming. And anything to close us off with, Sarah?
Well, now if I have any students at Southwestern College, I'm going to tell them to take your class.
Yes, please do. No, it was a pleasure. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Thank you so much for being here. We've loved having you.
Thank you. All righty, we're off. Bye.
See ya.
This has been the FYI podcast with the concerts of Grossmont College, brought to you by Zaravan Ali from Griffin Radio.